I want to say something about the challenge of our age. It's been around for quite a while, and that is shown to us by the Neptune-Pluto cycle. Got my cat with me today. I inherited him when I got this house last May. Anyway, he's 10 years old. He's called Sid, apparently. That's what the old owner said, from Six Dinner Sid. Anyway, that is definitely a digression. The big cycle, Neptune, Pluto, they're the two slowest moving planets. And so they have the longest cycle between them, between when they can join, then they move apart, and then they come back again. It lasts about 490 years. And the last time they came together was in 1890 in the sign of Gemini. The thing is, 490 years before that, they came together in the sign of Gemini as well. So that was the beginning, you could say, of the scientific age. I think before then they'd been in Taurus, and they're going to be in Gemini for a while before they move on into Cancer or wherever they move to. So Gemini Sagittarius, that is the axis of expression and of learning of the age that we live in. And that's been going on for a long time. And you could say it is information or facts, Gemini, versus stories, myths, Sagittarius. The age we live in is Gemini. The shadow of it is Sagittarius. So we live in an age of facts, scientific facts. And what has become the shadow is story, with the meaning that they contain. They become the shadow. So we see our stories for how the world came about as facts. That's how it really happened, inverted commas. And anything that came before that is just story. And that's another of the prejudices of our age, is that we are advanced. And what came before is primitive. Primitive just means early. It just means first. But I think it's got such a strong connotation of, inferior and brutish that I think we probably just need to get rid of the word. So what came earlier was mere story by superstitious people who were doing their best to understand the world in a fanciful, pre-rational sort of way. That's our kind of prejudice. It makes us feel good about ourselves. We're the advanced human beings, and we know what really happened, which was the Big Bang followed by evolution. That is Gemini. And the reason that story, because you see, Sagittarius is story. The reason it's not story is because in the deeper mythological sense, there's no magic or miracle to it. And in a way, this is my central theme, that we need a story about the universe that has magic and miracle in it. And I talked about this in my other podcast, The Astrology of Creation, which I did a few weeks ago. So there's a big overlap here. But this ties in with me talking about the shadows of the signs, which I've just been talking about. So what do? We've lost our unifying myth. God is dead. That's what Nietzsche said 100 and something years ago, 130 years ago probably, and we have killed him. We no longer have a unifying myth, not one that has magic and miracle in it. That is the problem. Big Bang and evolution do not have magic and miracle in them, not formally speaking. As the poet Yeats said in 1919, when he wrote his poem The Second Coming, it began, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed. Everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. So that's what happens when you lose your unifying myth in a culture. Maybe that's never happened before. Like I said, we have got one, but it's dead. If I was given the choice of choosing between the biblical creation story and the modern scientific fact, I would go with the biblical one because at least it's got magic and mystery in it. So the first thing we need to do is see scientific facts as stories. I put a lot of time and effort into this. It was like loosening this hold that goes quite deep, that our universe is essentially dead and the rest is just fanciful story. It has quite a deep emotional hold on us because our unifying story has to, because it's how we make sense of the universe. So it's not that the scientific story is wrong, but we need to relativize it, realize that it is just a story. We don't necessarily have to have one to replace it with, but we need to realize it is just a story. And that requires a certain amount or a great deal of psychological strength because you need to be able to live in the uncertainty. And this is what humans find difficult. But when you live in the uncertainty, the magic can happen because there's room for spirit to get in, because spirit isn't based on fixed stories. And so it can almost be like an intellectual exercise. There's a book called Shattering the Myths of Darwinism by Richard Milton, and he looks at the theory of evolution and basically he tears it apart. He's not replacing it with something else. He's not replacing it with a creator, because people think in black and white terms. If you get rid of evolution, therefore you must believe in the creation. It's like, no, I just don't have to have a story. It leaves room for the magic. So look that one up. I mean, this incredible complexity and beauty and creativity, nature just keeps unfolding. It's a mathematical impossibility that it could have arisen by chance. I had a dream once showing the incredible complexity and beauty and saying of nature and saying evolution only explains a thin sliver of how this came apart. So it's not like evolution isn't true. I'm not saying that. It's just that it's only got a very partial explanation. So it's important to move into that kind of way of seeing the world. The Big Bang, everything suddenly coming out of nothing, as Terence McKenna said. If that isn't a miracle, I don't know what is. So here we go. Treat your facts as myths and your myths as facts. Yeah? So take any myths you have about how the world came into being, read around, treat the biblical one as fact. Yeah? You can treat things as fact if there's magic in them. You can't treat them as fact and as literally true if there isn't magic in them, because they will kill you. We've turned fate into a dead thing. This great living design that we sometimes glimpse, that we live in. So I'm getting towards the end now of my 10-minute TikTok time slot. So this is the challenge of our age, is to turn facts into stories, facts into myths, as one myth amongst many. There's a number of ways of seeing the world. Yeah, indigenous people would have had several creation myths. They may even contradict each other. They weren't hooked up on the actual truth like we are. And this is the challenge of our Gemini age, which will continue into the future, because Neptune and Pluto are going to still keep meeting in there. What we do about this unifying myth and bringing magic into it, I don't know. But we probably have the psychological wherewithal to have several. We don't need to have the truth. We can have several. Delight in having several and what they each tell you about the nature of existence. And as astrologers, well, we have all those gods with all their stories. We live in multiple realities. Good. That will do for now.